Hi there, my creative case study is on Eunice Kennedy Shriver and is titled Turning Injustice into a Movement. Eunice Kennedy Shriver was the creator of the Special Olympics in 1968. Although I never personally knew Eunice, I find that we have a relationship through the work she completed and the work I complete on a daily basis. I currently teach 5th grade in Jackson County. My class includes 7 special education students along with general education students. I'm also a head varsity volleyball coach. As I engulf myself into the coaching world along with the teaching world, I wonder what types of opportunities there are out there for children with disabilities. I want to be able to encourage them to participate in sports and open their eyes to the opportunities they have as an athlete in the future. Through Eunice's work, I can open the door for many of my students to succeed in sports and in athletics throughout their lives. Prior to the 1930s, those with disabilities, most specifically intellectual disabilities, found themselves being treated unfairly. The treatment was often cruel, harsh, and brutal. People with disabilities were seen as defective due to lack of understanding their condition. They were often abandoned by their own families. It was seen by the community that they must be sterilized. They were not allowed to move into the United States of America if they did not already live here. They were not allowed to get married, nor were they allowed to have children. Many were institutionalized against their own will as well. In addition, the education laws negatively affected those with disabilities. As the 1930s and 40s went on, the injustice only worsened. It was suggested to remove those with mental disabilities by euthanasia. During World War II, Hitler deemed those with disabilities unworthy of life. This led to those with disabilities being gassed, starved, drugged, or used as medical experiments. Those with disabilities were still being placed in institutions by their families against their will. Many suffered abuse, neglect, deprivation of rights, and seclusion. Also, education was not getting better for those with disabilities. In 1950, the beginning of the National Barrier-Free Standards went into effect. By the end of the 1970s, 49 states adopted accessibility laws. In the 1960s, summer day camps were being offered in Eunice's backyard with the help of volunteers. In 1962, proposed research on mental disabilities by Eunice and colleagues went into effect. In 1963, President Kennedy signs different acts and amendments regarding those with disabilities. His intentions were to improve intellectual disability programs, to fund and take care of treatment facilities, and to encourage research on the topic. In 1965, universities began adding special education as a major. In 1968, the first Special Olympics were held in Chicago, Illinois. Zooming in on Eunice's work, we see that in 1947, Eunice was named trustee of the JPK Junior Foundation, which was established in order to help identify intellectual disabilities, to find ways to prevent them, and to advocate for those with different intellectual disabilities. In 1960, John F. Kennedy, her brother, is elected president and makes research and care for those with intellectual disabilities a priority. From 1962 to 1967, Eunice offers summer camps for those with intellectual disabilities, starting within her own backyard. In 1962, Eunice announces that her sister, also John F. Kennedy's sister, has an intellectual disability. In 1968, the first Special Olympics occurred. Events such as track and field, swimming, and floor hockey occurred. 1,000 athletes attended. The Special Olympics was now officially incorporated. In the upper left-hand corner, we see Eunice at her first Special Olympics. In the upper right-hand corner, we see swimming events occurring at the first Special Olympics. And on the bottom, we see athletes at the awards podium at the first Special Olympics.
And now a look at the impact of the Special Olympics 50 years after it all began. What started as a small, little-noticed competition in Chicago is now a global movement. It has helped to change society's attitudes toward people with intellectual disabilities. And as John Yang reports, their goal is inclusion far beyond the playing field.
The summer of 1968, a nation in turmoil. Protesters marched against the war in Vietnam. Urban riots erupted after the assassination of Martin Luther King Jr. But amid the tumult, an event the likes of which the world had never seen. An Olympics for children with intellectual disabilities. It was July 20th. Eunice Shriver spoke during the opening ceremony at Chicago's Soldier Field just 6 weeks after her brother Robert had been killed.
In ancient Rome, the gladiators went into the arena with these words on their lips: "Let me win, but if I cannot win, let me be brave in the attempt." Today, many of you will win, but even more important, I know you will be brave. Let us begin the Olympics. Thank you.
About 1,000 competitors from 26 states in Canada ran, swam, threw balls, jumped, and showed the world that they could fully participate in the rituals of childhood. The event drew little notice at the time, but it sparked a change in society's attitudes toward the intellectually disabled.
First Special Olympics made a huge impact on the lives of those with intellectual disabilities, along with the societies that they lived in. As quoted from the video, the goal was inclusion far beyond the playing field. The first Special Olympics showed the world that those with intellectual disabilities could fully participate in the rituals of childhood. And lastly, the first Special Olympics sparked a change in society's attitudes towards the intellectual disabled. The Special Olympics today include 4.9 million Special Olympic athletes, ages 8 years old and up. So why did Eunice want to create the Special Olympics? First, she believed in justice. She believed everyone deserved possibilities and opportunities. She knew people with intellectual disabilities had talents. She had a sister with an intellectual disability. She was a college athlete and believed that everyone could participate in sports. She wanted those with intellectual disabilities to know they have potential for growth. She wanted to give those with intellectual disabilities a chance to play, a chance to compete, and a chance to grow. Characteristics of Eunice Kennedy Shriver include the following. Most importantly, her emotional responsiveness. She responds emotionally to stories, events, and needs of group members. Next, she is problem-centered and has originality of ideas during her problem-solving processes. She doesn't give up and she keeps trying to solve problems. She shows concern and tries to solve problems of others, especially those with intellectual disabilities. She produces solutions that others do not think of. She also produces solutions when no one else can. This goes in line with her ability to create the first Special Olympics. Also, her responsiveness to the kinesthetic movements. Her movements and those of those that she affects stimulates ideas. They communicate ideas, and they interpret meaning. She also has expressive speech. With that being said, her speech is picturesque. It includes powerful analogies and metaphors and is vivid. The creative characteristics of the Special Olympics include that it celebrates the different abilities in which someone expresses emotion. It celebrates the different abilities in responsiveness to kinesthetic. It is a demonstration of problem-centeredness. It celebrates the different abilities in expressive speech. It celebrates the different abilities and expressiveness of gestures and body language. And it celebrates the different abilities in emotional responsiveness. I'm not going to read through all of the events, but one can see that since the 1970s, there has been a huge push for equality, justice, and rights for those with disabilities regarding education, public access, assistive technology, and rights. As I completed this project, I can't help but feel a new passion come over me for the inclusion of those with disabilities in sporting events. As I coach, I see Eunice as an exceptional human who saw the impact of participating in sports and made it possible for all to participate and enjoy.